Good morning, good morning, good morning. Just quick check on the time there, quick check on the time. Good morning, hope you're well. So I'm going to continue in the vein of the last live that I did, which was around 3 top tips of what to do if your number doesn't shift when you're tapping. Sorry, it's me. Because what we're doing with tapping is when we're working on either an emotion or a belief, we give the intensity of the emotion or the truth of the belief a number 1 to 10, where 10 is really, really intense or 10 feels really, really true, so that we can track our progress. So we do some tapping and then we check in with the number again. And obviously if it comes down, usually we're headed in the right direction. The last live talked about what to do if your number doesn't shift at all, but there is, of course, a third option, which is that your number ends up higher than it was when you started. So there is a main reason why this happens. And what I'm going to invite you to do is, if this does happen to you, the question you're going to ask yourself is it the same emotion? So if you're tapping for anger, which is what this tends to happen with, and you say the anger is a 7 out of 10, say, you do some tapping, and when you've finished, everything feels more intense. You're like, gosh, this has gone up. It's now a 9 out of 10. Claire, what are you doing to me? The question to ask yourself is this the same emotion? This 9 out of 10, is it still anger? Because what happens is our emotions layer. We have layers of emotion. And we tend to layer on top of emotions that make us feel weak. We don't really want to feel them. They're too painful. I'm talking about things like shame, sadness, guilt. So what we tend to do is we layer other emotions on top of those. Stuff like anger, frustration. So when you're tapping for an emotion, what often happens is you start tapping on that emotion, half that emotion actually comes down, but as it comes down and you release it, you've got the next layer waiting for you. Woohoo! And because that's new, it can be a higher intensity number. So the question to ask yourself, is this the same emotion? Because what I find, I would say pretty much 100% of the time, I can't think off the top of my head of a single instance where this hasn't been the case. When I'm working with someone, or particularly when I'm working with a group, and someone has put their hand up to say, yes, my number is higher, I ask the question, is it the same emotion? And they go, oh, actually, no, this is a different one. And it's usually something like sadness or guilt or shame. Or it may just shift sideways from the frustration instead of anger. So then the question after that is, okay, so if we go back to the original emotion, which was anger in this example, has that number come down? And generally, yes. Yes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 100% of the time it's been yes. That original emotion has come down, and it's the new emotion that has the intensity. So that's the first thing to explore if your number shoots up. Now, the other thing that can happen, and this is also incredibly common, is when you start tapping, particularly for an emotion, you start tapping, and let's stick with the anger, 7 out of 10. You start tapping, it spikes. It goes whoosh, up to a 10 out of 10. And then you continue tapping and it comes back down again, and it comes down lower. The reason you get that whoosh spike, and you've got to include the sound effect with that whoosh spike, is because this is probably an emotion you haven't really looked at or acknowledged fully in the past because we don't like to feel. There's certain emotions we don't like to feel. Anger's generally one of them. So we tend to, or sadness or guilt, so we tend to push them down. That's why they layer. We push them down. We try to pretend they're not there. Oh, no, 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 no. If I can't see you, you can't see me. When you start tapping, you're doing the equivalent of turning and facing it. You're getting it out of its box and you're having a look at it. And so as a result, you can get that spike of intensity. If that happens to you, the temptation is going to be to stop tapping. Please don't. Tapping turns off your stress response. So you don't have to say anything, but please keep tapping, and I promise you the intensity will drop. Just keep tapping. Might just take a little bit longer than perhaps you were expecting, but just keep going. And that intensity will come down. So have a little play with those. When you do your tapping next, just be conscious of where you get that spike of intensity. Be conscious of that coming down. Be conscious of if the emotion is actually shifting. Are you starting to work your way through layers of emotion? Approach all of this with curiosity and keep a track of your numbers so that you can see what's going on. So I hope that was useful. Drop me a question if you've got a question. Let me know of a time where perhaps your number spiked and didn't come down. What? Or times where you've experienced exactly that. You've had that intensity, it's come back down, or you've had the intensity, but actually it's turned into a different emotion. Let me know. Give me the feedback. I'm very nosy. I like to know these things, and I also like to help where I can. So please, if you've got any questions, please do feel free to put them in the comments. Otherwise, have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Doodles!